Hello everybody, welcome to the Wonky Angle, where I talk about electronic music, both new and old. And today it is once again time to talk about a new album from the Black Dog. This one's called Feral Grace. Alright, I needed something to tide over the upload schedule while I work on other stuff, so here's a quick video on another new Black Dog album. Now, these guys have already put out one of my favorite albums of 2026 so far with Loud Ambient 2, their first project to come out after the tragic passing of Ken Downey, and now having been reduced to a duo, but also a super immediately likable collection of straightforward melodic ambient techno that proved they still had just as much creative gas in the tank as always, even in the wake of such a huge loss. And they're still pressing on at the same pace they've been going in the last handful of years, so we got another album only a few months after the last one, inspired by old childhood places that were reclaimed by nature, or were replaced by new housing estates, or that kind of thing. Themes of how you can't go back to the way things were, but you still got your memories of it. Relatively familiar thematic territory for them. Now, truth be told, I am a slight bit late to this one, since it didn't even register to me that this was a main album at all when it first dropped, considering the track listing only has 7 tracks. But it is in fact an album and not an EP. In fact, it's actually a few minutes longer than Loud Ambient 2 as a result of the tracks themselves getting stretched out longer than usual for more of an open-ended and meditative approach. And that structuring does allow this project to stand apart in its own way from the slew of material they've put out over the past couple of years. Now, the style and sound of this material isn't anything super far afield of what you'd typically expect from them at this point, but they did find just enough of a way to execute and reconfigure their usual dark and brooding mix of ambience and techno that felt unique in the overall context of their catalog. It's kind of a similar sort of in-between point between their ambient material and techno material that the My Brutal Life albums have, but the experience here is not quite as cold or brooding as the material on those albums. It's moving more in the marginally sweeter or warmer and more emotional direction some of their other most recent material has gone in, like Sleep Deprivation and the Loud Ambient albums, but also doing its own separate thing with that sort of general tone, partially being advertised as their hauntological album, I guess. And the resulting experience, or at least certain parts of it, interestingly gave me like some Ulrich Schnauz vibes, circa A Strangely Isolated Place or Goodbye, and that is certainly not a parallel I would have thought to make for any previous Black Dog projects. Opener Bleak Comfort is one of the longest tracks to appear on one of their main albums in a very long time, running on for 10.5 minutes. It's primarily an open-ended ambient jam, but the mix of brighter melodic plinks, sweeter cinematic pads, bass drones, and snapping effects is quite immersive and very slightly changes shape, with certain elements taking greater focus or falling further in the background and waving around in that sort of way. Soft Collapse was probably the track where the Ulrich Schnauz comparison most readily came to mind, between the super sweet and fluffy melodic progressions going over mildly down-tempo beats, wispy bass pads, and I feel like some processed woodwinds and flutes in the background or something. Really nice and enveloping as well. And the following run of tracks feel like they're taking similar ideas as those first 2 tracks, but progressively letting them decay into more and more formless ambient territory. The Slow Decline has a marginally colder and spacier texture to its ambient pads and light tapping percussion to give a more mysterious edge to the same nostalgic atmosphere the previous tracks had. Some of those subtle bass stabs have a cool, mildly squelchy texture to them too. It's a track that evokes being visited by aliens or something, I guess. And the next 3 tracks are just straight ambient. Cold Patterns is a lengthy 8-minute arrangement of expansive pads, periodic rumbling bass, and twinkling melodies in the background, furthering the previous track's more mysterious alien atmosphere and making it feel even more imposing. Broken Signal takes the same mix of sonic ingredients and makes it feel even darker and more minor key and more foreboding, with some even lighter percussion clicks echoing away on top periodically. Actually vaguely reminds me of some of the colder and freakier moments on some of Mike Paradinas' most recent ambient projects like 1979 or Manzana, which I will not complain about. And the album reaches its most minimalistic point with penultimate track Dead Language that features nothing but brooding synth string pads washing over each other. It feels like it's vaguely resembling some kind of classical orchestral arrangement, and it's one of the album's sadder and more profound feeling emotional moments. Finally, though, the album culminates in Every Empty Room, which is actually one of the most unique moments in the Black Dog catalog to date, combining like these halftime beats that sound inspired by classic dubstep and all these super warm and expansive melodic ambient pads that feel more uplifting and triumphant. This feels like the closest one of their productions could reasonably come to reminding me of an artist like, I don't know, Blackmill or something? Which, even if this obviously isn't nearly as blatantly tied to like early 2010s commercial EDM trends as that guy's stuff was, I certainly would not have ever expected that name to like even vaguely come to mind at all while listening to an album by the Black Dog, and I will definitely take it. Certainly makes for a strong and emotionally satisfying finish to the whole project as well. So there we go, that's all I have to say about Feral Grace. I wouldn't call it like one of the absolute best projects they've put out over the past couple of years, but it maintains the same level of quality I will always expect out of them. And it did get better the more times I put it on as something that fits well in their usual bag, but also kind of does its own thing I wouldn't be able to get in quite the same way on other Black Dog albums. It's in the same tier of enjoyment for me as projects of theirs like the Grey Album and Fragments, somewhere around the middle of my personal ranking of their projects. It'll be worth checking out if you've enjoyed any of their most recent stuff and if you missed out on it, so yeah. I think I'm feeling a very strong 7.5 out of 10 to a light 7.7. But of course, this is just my opinion. You can feel free to disagree with it, but I'd like to hear your thoughts, so leave the comments in the comment thing down there. Shout out to my Patreon supporters. They're awesome people. You want to add yourself to that list, or make me review something, link to my Patreon is in the description. Schedule is still open. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That's all for today. See you next time.